There is no minimalist rule book. Well, until now. The minimalists have created 16 rules for living with less, a free ebook which you can download right now at theminimalists.com/resources. Enjoy. Is recycling actually making a difference? I've heard a lot about how expensive it is to recycle materials and that most recycled waste ends up in landfills anyway. It seems as if it is merely perceived as a responsible decision for the environment. So I'd be curious to see what the data says.
I've got an article on exactly this topic coming out in Wired as soon as I finish it, and then after a little bit, um, where I look at, in particular, plastics recycling, which is something that we have been told is a really important, really valuable thing to do. And the evidence convinces me otherwise.
Mm.
The only way, for example, that America's post consumer plastic winds up in the ocean is if we put it in our recycle bins. If we put it in the
Oh.
trash bin, it goes to landfill. And when you hear the word landfill, a lot of people think of a town dump from the 1940s. You know, there are rats everywhere and birds flying overhead. It's this environmental nightmare. That might have been true in the 1940s. Modern landfills are very environmentally stable. They are regulated like crazy, as they should be, and they're basically a big old hole in the ground that is walled off from the rest of the environment. So
Mm.
I've got very little problem with modern landfills. We put our trash in that landfill fills up, you seal it, you put earth on top, you build a solar farm or a playground, end of story. I just don't see a bunch of harm there. You put plastic in a recycle bin, it enters this really weird, complex global supply chain where essentially it gets turned into a bale of plastics. And very often that bale gets put on a ship and sent to a low income country with very, very poor pollution controls. And it is not the case that everything in that bale winds up getting recycled. There's a great, in a terrifying sense, documentary called Plastic China that looks at what actually happens inside the Chinese recycling industry. And you watch these desperately poor people pick through oceans of plastic for the stuff that they can actually turn into pellets and recycle profitably, and the
Mm.
rest just kind of blows off into the environment, or
Oh
gets
my
dumped in
gosh.
an open pit, or gets burned, or winds up in the oceans. So depending on how you do the calculations, there's a wide range. I think we Americans put something between about 70,000 and 700,000 containers worth of our plastic trash in the ocean via our recycling efforts over the year. This needs to stop.
Absolutely needs to stop. It sounds to me like the answer is, again, it's not a zero waste lifestyle. Although I really applaud the people who try that out. I know that it's not practical for most of us, and
I
it's
can't imagine how much work that is, but
right,
wow.
right. But and so for me, I've always been a proponent of consuming less of the unnecessary things. So if I
Yep.
have the option of bringing my own bag instead of getting the plastic bag at the store, I'm going to do that. Although, of course, if I'm just buying a bunch of the canvas bags, that's probably worse on the environment than having
It actually,
individual
right,
paper
it
bags.
actually is. It turns out you need to reuse that canvas, that hemp, that whatever bag many, many, many times
Hey, like ten
before the
thousand
old.
times.
Yeah, it
It's
depends on which study
absurd.
you look at.
Yeah.
Before the environmental impact is lower for that than it is for just using those plastic bags. Keep in mind the reason plastic is so cheap is that it doesn't cost very much. The raw materials don't cost very much, and they make the stuff in gigantic factories.
Hmm.
So that's not the case for your hemp bag, your canvas bag, even your paper bag, which we chop down trees to make. So
Hmm.
this gets very weird very quickly, and it's counterintuitive, especially because we've had that mantra of reduce, reuse, recycle drilled into us for 40 or 50 years. It's certainly been drilled into me. Of those three, the one that I still categorically agree with is yours. It's reduce. And
Hmm.
just think about your consumption patterns. I'm less of a fan of reuse. I think recycling probably does more harm than good overall.
Wow.